This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
I'm Emma Keeling in Watch It, England, where a company is revolutionising the construction industry using fungi.
And I'm Jo Colan in the city of Liverpool, where you may be surprised to know they're working on a universal anti-venom that could save hundreds of thousands of lives.
Over the world, biotech startups are cleaning up our toxic way of living by discovering new ways of harnessing the power of nature. But instead of fighting against the status quo, one London company is changing it from within by working alongside local communities to create a more sustainable future. Plastic and pollution choke many parts of our lives. It was sites like these that shocked Ehab Saeed into making a decision that could revolutionise industry.
When I started my master's degree at Brunel University, I led a research project investigating the waste streams in the UK. And what I found is that the construction industry were generating incredible amounts of waste. That sort of led us on a really exciting journey that led us to where we are now, of developing new materials for the construction industry.
The production of cement creates so much CO2 that if the industry was a country, only China and the US would emit more in a year. But Ehab believes nature can show us how to create greener building material options. You just have to know where to look.
I think there's some here.
Oh wow, look at those beauties.
Yeah.
Oh, and there's little threads, is that it?
There's the mycelium.
These little fingers of fungus are mycelia, which act like the janitor of the world, cleaning up nature by decomposition and cycling of nutrients. So sending out these little threads.
Yeah.
And one day you could grow up to be insulation panels. Which is exactly what Ehab and the team at Biome are doing here at their R&D labs in London. They're growing sustainable, regenerative insulation panels.
When we were looking at the materials that need to be addressed, it was very clear that insulation, sheet materials, and concrete or structural materials were the main three key areas. So when it came to investigating insulation, we wanted to look for examples in nature of structures that are naturally grown and that are naturally created to achieve the highest level of porosity.
When we walk into a field or forest, often the only part of a fungus we can see is the fruiting body, such as a mushroom, which is found above ground. These contain reproductive spores which are shed and carried away by the wind, animals or water. If they land where there is moisture and food, they can germinate and produce hyphae, tubular filaments or threads that are microscopic. These hyphae divide repeatedly along their length, creating long branching chains until they form a network of threads known as mycelium, which is visible to the naked eye. As the mycelium spreads, it releases digestive enzymes, allowing it to break down organic matter such as wood into smaller molecules which feed the fungal network, helping it to grow. At Biome, they're harnessing that ability.
Mycelium is these little filaments, these little hairs that you see growing here. And then when it gets really, really dense, these network of fibers create something solid, just like you see here.
This is actually mycelium.
Indeed.
But this is in the form of this is what the insulation panel actually looks like.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a smaller version, but this is exactly what the insulation panels look like.
Wow, I've seen pictures of this and I just wanted to touch it. You can hear it's almost like a plasticky, woody, mushroomy kind of texture. It's incredible, isn't it?
So it all starts with something like this. This is called agar, and it's a very nutritious jelly, essentially. We pop a little piece of a mushroom, literally need a microscopic bit, and then they'll happily grow on this sort of medium.
One petri dish can provide the startup medium for 7 panels.
So from this, we can sort of assess different strains, we can see how well they're growing, we can have an idea of how strong they are, and it's a very key first step. This is sort of our data bank of mycelium, if you will.
From the dish to the jar, the mycelia are fed on nutritious biomass and waste products such as grains, which eventually become part of the panel.
And then we pop it inside one of these things. So I can pop some of these open for you, and inside...
Whoa! How many panels is in here?
Not so many, actually.
Hang on. I don't have another look
absolutely.
at this. So one jar, you've just got to put in, what, lots of feed, and then you put that one jar in here and it creates that mass.
Yeah. Even half a jar is enough for this, even less.
From the petri dish to the panel takes about 6.5 weeks.
I'm going to go and get the panel so we can understand this, because that just looked like a big load of sort of fungusy porridge. So how does that sort of, do you put it in like a shape? So you put it into like a dish to make it square or rectangular?
Yeah, there's lots of ways you can go about it.
We can't go into detail because it's all IP protected tech, but basically as the mycelium grows, it consumes the food waste, filling the gaps, creating a dense mass. The panels are then cured, killing the mycelium, making it ready for market. But will it sell?
So what makes this different from other insulation panels?
Well, the main difference is that it's a completely natural product. When it comes to performance, it's outperforming almost everything on the market when it comes to thermal conductivity, health and well-being impact, the fire resistance of the material, and we're able to achieve all these advances just by harnessing nature's genius rather than adding coatings and chemicals to it.
And sound as well.
And sound as well, yeah. So the acoustic properties of mycelium are incredibly advanced. We're currently accrediting our insulation for both acoustic and thermal insulation.
The different species of fungus and what they are fed change the qualities of the panels.
Sustainability is always perceived to be a premium. A material that is natural and good for the planet and good for us is, always attached to a premium label. And we want to show that sustainability can become mainstream and can be the norm.
There's also sheet materials made out of bio-waste, such as orange peel, and a skin of mycelia, which is like leather.
When do you think you might be able to build a house out of orb and mycelium?
Well,
I'm kind of interested now.
That's where our plant-based concrete comes in, and that's what we're working on over the next 2 years.
What are you not working on? Maybe we should look at that.
There's always this brilliant moment when you start talking about it and then you're like, okay, so then the mushrooms, they kind of eat the rubbish and then that turns into a new product, and then wait for it, hang on a minute. There's also this thing where plastic, maybe we can use mushrooms to eat plastic, and you just see people's faces like what?
Life moves pretty fast. Ideas move at the speed of sound. Technology moves at the speed of light. If you don't filter out the noise, you might miss the details. We pay attention to the details because they matter, showing you a different perspective. See the difference.
The world has changed under the pressure of the pandemic. For many of us, life is returning to some kind of normal. As we're adapting to changes in all of our lives, let Global Business Europe be your guide to the new normal. Join us weekdays on CGTN.
To really change the industry, EHAB believed Biome needed to include a component of social science as well. That was about the time the Onion Collective called. Perched on the west coast of England is the town of Watchet, population less than 4,000, but it includes 5 very determined professional women.
The market doesn't really work here. The state increasingly doesn't have any money here. So if someone else doesn't do something, then the place just kind of quietly gets worse and worse. We have the lowest social mobility in the whole country in this part of West Somerset.
So why choose Biome, and why would Biome want to manufacture here? I was about to find out. The name, the Onion Collective, represents the many layers of backgrounds and skill sets they bring to this social enterprise, and their goal is the regeneration of their town.
Was it a hard sell? Hey guys, we're going to have a factory making, mycelium insulation panels.
I wouldn't say a hard sell. It was, everyone's like, wow, what? It's like a confused sell. But no, once you explain that mushrooms eat waste and that you can make things from the roots of mushrooms, then everyone's like, oh yeah, wow, that's the future.
They completed a feasibility study looking at the local assets, skill sets, and global industry trajectories. Bio-based material development was a winner, and Watchet had 200 years of experience of manufacturing paper, although these days the old mill looks more like mournful modern art.
How long ago did it shut down? How many people lost their jobs?
It closed at the end of 2015, Christmas Eve.
Oh.
Yeah, and it was 175 jobs, so absolutely massive. 20% of the town's workforce lost their jobs overnight.
Wow.
So yeah, devastating.
That was then. Now EHAB and the Biome team are paying a visit. They're aiming to be manufacturing by the end of the year.
And through here is where the facility's being built.
Whoa, a little bit of work to do.
Yeah. We have had a lot of delays because of COVID, of course. But through here is where you got the labs, the incubation rooms, where the mycelium insulation panels are going to be grown. And from this entire space, we can grow 3,000 square meters of insulation per month,
wow,
which is around 20 homes worth of insulation. So over the next 2 years, we're going to be growing 6-fold in terms of the production capacity and have space to grow about 3 times as big as we are at the moment.
Instead of following the typical make, use, dispose industry model, all Biome's resources and products will be circular.
So all the energy used in the production of our materials will be from renewable sources, if not generated on site. And our materials are actually carbon negative, so they consume more carbon than they release during the production process. For example, 1 square meter of mycelium insulation produced can sequester 0.8 to 1.7 kilograms of carbon, which may not seem very significant, but at a scale of 20 homes worth of insulation per month from our first facility, we're looking at sequestering almost 6 tons of carbon every month. And that's the same as the work of 3,200 trees.
And because no chemicals or additives are used, old panels become the feed for new panels, with customers bound by contract to return materials at end of life. Another unusual aspect of this business is it's a 50-50 profit share between Biome and the Onion Collective.
I mean, I tell this story about what we're doing quite a lot. I'm always standing up on a stage or talking to a room full of people. And there's always this brilliant moment when you start talking about it and then you're like, okay, so then the mushrooms, they kind of eat the rubbish and then that turns into a new product. And then wait for it, hang on a minute. There's also this thing where plastic, maybe we can like use mushrooms to eat plastic. And you just see people's faces like what? Sorry, what? Like, that's not true.
Oh, but it is. While scientists and mycologists or fungi experts are in the know about the organism's ability to eat plastic, it's big news to most of us. Biome has received funding for this research from a major UK supermarket chain, and even companies within the petrochemical industry have been in touch, interested in what mycelium could do. Lead biotechnology engineer Samantha Jenkins is running the experiments.
So these are a few of our different strains that we're working with.
Normally, plastic can take anywhere from 10 to 1,000 years to break down, but in this lab, one mycelium strain consumed a piece in 2 months. Samantha is testing the effectiveness of different strains on different plastic.
Yeah, so microbiological genomes are much more flexible than our own. So if, for example, you present them with an issue like there's nothing to eat but plastic, which is our experimental setup that we're using, then they can adapt and evolve much quicker than, for example, we could as, higher organisms. So they're much more flexible with the enzymes that they can produce, how they produce them, and what functions they can use them for.
So they're basically doing us a huge favour here. We've created this mess and they're helping us to clean it up.
Exactly, yeah.
Biome's using what's called directed evolution in their experiments.
So, for example, the characteristic we want to see is plastic degradation or faster plastic degradation. So we're taking away any other food source, and that's the stress that we're putting on them, is removing any food source that's easier to eat. So glucose or lignin or cellulose, which is what they would normally eat.
So you're looking at loads of different strains to see which is the best performer?
Well, we started with about 15 strains, and now we're down to about 4. So we're narrowing it down to the cream of the crop.
Samantha is also testing Mycelium's ability to decompose plastic in water, but it will be at least 2 years before all this technology becomes available. One day, their Mycelium panels may even be grown from toxic byproducts such as plastic and oil and be harmlessly absorbed into the material. And there are already plans to build another facility in England and a third in the Netherlands.
We've been invited by governments and local authorities and social enterprises from around the globe, Australia, India, all over Europe, to set up our biomanufacturing facilities in their localities.
Eventually, EHAB wants to open source all their technologies, which will hopefully rebuild the construction industry. But that's the big picture. Right now, Watch It locals just want to get their hands on their panels.
I keep having to give out my phone number to people in Watch It now, because increasingly everyone knows about it and everyone's like, right, when's it ready? We're like, okay, we're nearly there. So yeah, it's exciting. And it will be interesting how we deal with that combination of this kind of big global demand, and we know that there's lots of interest from big firms who are kitting out huge numbers of houses. But then there's also, the local guys here and the small builders, and everyone wants to be, part of that story. So that is quite life-affirming.
It's a really, really exciting way of showing how, industry is not separate to community, government and academia. We need to integrate all those different parts to really have a step change, especially at a time of climate crisis.
Hello, I'm Stephen Cole at CGTN's European headquarters in London.
My international guests help me help you set your agenda.
A well-looked-after body will make the brain happy.
That is the evidence.
We want to share the benefits of China development.
This story is far from finished.
Join me on the agenda at these times every week.
Hyperloops have been in development all over the world since the idea was first floated by entrepreneur Elon Musk in 2012. It's envisaged that they could one day link the whole world. Instead of retaining copyright, Elon Musk released the idea, allowing any business to attempt to build the technology. It works like this. Passenger capsules or pods are propelled through partial vacuum tubes using electric propulsion and magnetic levitation. This addresses two major problems which currently slow down traditional vehicles: friction and air resistance. Without these impediments, Hyperloops promise to carry passengers at speed in excess of 1,100 kilometres per hour. Acceleration and deceleration will be gradual, so as not to affect the passengers. And the capsules will be made of carbon fibre composites, designed to protect passengers if anything hits the exterior. Hyperloop stations can be located in central city locations with easy access to existing infrastructure. Hyperloops could travel above or below ground with external travel tubes supported by pylons that will move independently of each other in case of ground movement. Because they need very little energy to drive them, they could also be powered by renewable energy, making them significantly more environmentally friendly than air travel and just as fast. One company aims to have Hyperloops running on commercial tracks in China and Abu Dhabi in the next couple of years. Plans have also recently been unveiled for a Hyperloop that could one day connect Amsterdam to Frankfurt, allowing travel between the two in just 50 minutes, compared to the current 4 hours by train.
The World Health Organization call it one of the world's priority neglected tropical diseases. Up to 138,000 people die every year from snake bites due to a drastic global shortage of antivenoms. I'm Jo Colan in Liverpool, maybe not the place you'd expect scientists to be working on a universal snakebite cure, but they hope their research will help 3 million people every year. Antivenom hasn't changed much since the early 1900s. Even the best only protect against a small number of the 250 different venomous snakes.
We're trying to develop a completely new treatment for snakebite, effective against all of the snakes in sub-Saharan Africa and India. In sub-Saharan Africa, 32,000 people are dying from snakebite. In India, 46,000 people are dying from snakebite. That's half the number of people that are dying from HIV. And people are dying in Southeast Asia, they're dying in Latin America. Globally, there's 138,000 people dying from snakebite that we know of.
To make antivenom, you need venom. And here at the Liverpool School of Tropical Medicine, over 100 of the most venomous snakes on the planet are helping save lives. So I'm about to be only feet away from one of the world's deadliest snakes, which will be out of its box and writhing around free on the floor until our colleagues here secure it. So it is a little bit nerve-wracking, I have to say.
All right. Yeah.
Antivenoms are usually only effective against bites from the species of snake providing the venom.
Yeah. I might just try it like this. Like that. Okay. Just relax slightly. There we go. In. And out again, and in. Okay. Ready?
Paul, I know it's been rare, but you have been bitten, is that right?
It is, yes. I have been bitten by snakes in the past. The last bite was some 17 years ago from an 8-week-old baby Western diamondback rattlesnake. I had 26 ampoules of antivenom, which is quite a large amount of antivenom. I spent several days in hospital with that, and the pain level was beyond anything I've experienced before. I felt like somebody was sticking my arm into boiling oil and grinding my bones together.
Currently, antivenom is made by extracting venom from a snake. a horse is then injected with very tiny doses of venom that does not cause harm to the horse. This stimulates the horse's immune response to make antibodies to the venom. These antibodies are then harvested from the horse's blood. In order to get a high enough concentration of antibodies, horses must be injected several times a year over several years. It's a long and expensive process, not easily available in the parts of the world that need it most.
Africa is in an antivenom crisis and has been for the last 20 years. And the reason is that the two best antivenoms that were available in Africa for most of the 70s and 80s and 90s have disappeared because they were expensive. The demand for those by governments and so on was really low, and those companies, one in Germany and one in France, simply could no longer afford to continue producing these loss makers. And so they stopped production. And what happened then was antivenoms that were less effective were coming in from other parts of the world and being used. And here now we have a problem because an effective product has been stopped. The supply of effective product has stopped, replaced by other products which are some dangerously ineffective. But the doctors who are giving the antivenoms don't know that. How can they know that? And so they will give one vial of an antivenom, and if the patient doesn't recover, they will give more vials, more vials. And
Of
so
a
what
product that's ineffective?
Yes, and that it's causing these adverse effects.
Everything changed for Professor Rob Harrison when he got a call from the International AIDS Vaccine Initiative in San Diego.
The telephone call was, do you want to collaborate with us? And my immediate reaction...
Not on HIV, but on snakebite.
Well, exactly, that was my reaction. Why HIV? And he explained very quickly that they had technical platforms that they had developed for their HIV vaccine research that he thought we could use very usefully for snakebite.
Up until now, treatment has been based on the venom, not on the symptoms it causes, which include paralysis, asphyxiation, and unstoppable bleeding and bleeding in the brain.
So the people who've been working on AIDS have understood more about the molecules and more about the antibodies and how they can work to interact broadly with HIV viruses, despite them changing a lot over time.
The HIV researchers found that some humans develop broadly neutralizing antibodies that prevent infection by the majority of HIV strains. Remarkably, these antibodies have found parts of the virus protein that are common among the many different strains. Such antibodies are therefore capable of inhibiting infection by any virus that has that region in common. In some cases, this translates to almost 90% inhibition of diverse HIV strains by a single antibody.
What we're hoping to be able to do is to engineer antibodies so that they can broadly recognise lots of these different toxins, no matter which snake bites a person, and so they can be neutralised in a generic manner.
It's hoped the new universal antivenom will require lower doses and will not produce the adverse reactions that antibodies from animals can cause.
Certainly we wouldn't need to take venom and inject it into an animal in the way that snakebite therapies are made today. We'd be able to grow cells that produce the antibodies in the laboratory and remove the animals from the process.
Developing a universal antivenom has been made possible due to almost $12 million from the UK Department for International Development. Now, the World Health Organization identified 2030 as the date by which they'd like to halve snakebite deaths around the world. How optimistic can we be?
I think if there is more investment like the Wellcome Trust, if there are more groups getting involved, delivering the many different things that the WHO strategy involves, then we have a chance. But I do think it's ambitious. But what I don't doubt is that there are groups around the world who have that commitment and who will try their very best to deliver.